Hello, everybody. This is Miguel, and this is the post-race beer review. We're going to go over the Run the Rainbow for Children's full, half, 10K, 5K, and there's also an ultra, the the 50K option as well. This is a race that's in Jackson, Mississippi. It was this previous weekend. It ties in with Jackson's St. Patrick's Day activities, festival weekend, festival week. We're gonna go over that race. For those unfamiliar, the post-race beer review is more of just an informal, a shorter episode, usually about 20, 30 minutes, if that, around about that. We just talk about the race, talk about the weekend. Well, not the whole weekend, just about the race and how all that went. We're going to be enjoying the Fertile Ground Beer Company. They have a beer, the Creme Brulee. Creme Brulee, it's a sweet stout. It's listed as a milk stout, but I didn't really get the milk part of it. It's very sweet. It's very strong at a 10%. There's no IBUs listed. I'm going to maybe say 35, maybe 30. So it's very smooth on that front. I did enjoy it. It was just a little too sweet for my personal taste, so I'm going to put that at like a 3.7. I'm going to rate it 3.75 medals out of 5. 3.75 medals out of 5. Still enjoyed it. Just a little too sweet for my personal taste. Getting into the race. So the race, there's 2 start times. There's a 4:30 start and a 6:30 start for the marathon, and then there's a 7 o'clock start for the half, and then I think 7:30 for the 5K and 10K. Don't quote me on that for the 5 and 10K because I wasn't there, or even the half. I just mainly concerned myself with the early start, which was 4:30, and the regular start, which was 6:30. This was a smaller race. It currently is a smaller race. It's only the 4th year that this has occurred, occurred. I really wasn't expecting as well of a situation that there was. Everything was really well ran, well organized. The start line, the parking situation was great at the front end. We'll get into that later on. But they had parking that was about a block away at the fairgrounds, and you just walked uphill, which was nice walking uphill before the marathon, and you walk down 2 blocks to get to the start line. I learned about this race from the RD. I met the RD at another race at Rocket City, and her and I spoke there, and she got me to come over to Jackson for this race. So I came in to this race for that. It was warmer than I expected, being from Indiana. Well, the last week in Indiana, it was a range between mid-20s to mid-60s. So there's really wild swings that goes both directions. And it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, if you live in the Midwest, you're kind of, you know what you should expect, but you know what temperature is normal, but you also know that it's also normal to go either direction on that swing. God, that's good. That's good beer. So I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express over by the fairgrounds, which was really good parking situation. I got my car, and I realized I only had to drive. Well, the fairgrounds is a pretty large area, probably 100 acres or something like that. So it was the opposite side of the fairgrounds is where I had to drive to, but it was easy from the hotel. The hotel, I'll be honest, it's in need of renovation, but it was a fair hotel, but it was in need of renovation. That Holiday Inn Express by the fairgrounds, I forget what the official name. Like, you know how there's different names. You know, the Holiday Inn, Lakeside, Holiday Inn, Airport, Holiday Inn. You know, Riverview, whatever the case may be. It's the one beside the fairgrounds is what it came out to. But either way, that's where we stayed at. and it was right by the fairgrounds, which was easy to get to. The race starts out, and I had a really good time. I ended up seeing another runner that I met. I met her the first time at the B&O Trail Run south of Tacoma, Washington, and then I met her again when I ran the Jack and Jill Marathon. She was doing that race, and I don't recall if we had spoke about her doing Run the Rainbow. I think she might have told me about it, but I don't recall. But she was there, and then of course the RD was there, who I met at Rocket City, and then later on I met another lady that I met at Rocket City. There was two different podcasters there as well. Back of the Pack was there. They were running the half. There's a male and female there, and then Run Your Story was there. Let me make sure that I'm giving that the correct, because I don't want to give shout outs to the wrong people. Run Your Story podcast, yes. They were there as well, and I got to meet both of those hosts. So if I was, I want to give them a shout out, give them a listen. They're on Spotify, both of them. I assume they're also on Apple Music and YouTube Music, but I'm not certain of that at this moment. But whatever you're listening to me on, search for them, give them a listen, give them a like, subscribe, a follow. They would appreciate that. Hopefully I can pair with them, and we'll have a little crossover episode where something can work out there. Back to the race. So the race starts out, you go down. It's older, like a warehouse area, maybe. It was a warehouse area. You can look around, you can see different rail lines that are leading in and out from the area. It's an old warehouse area. Go down, you make a turn, you come back up the road. The first turn is probably about a quarter mile, and then you go about 400 feet, you make a left, and then you make another left, and then it's 2 miles, and you're running. It's kind of it's a down and uphill. The whole course is up and down for the first 6 miles or so. You run by Belhaven University, beautiful campus. It's not a large campus, but running by the university was nice. Then you run by the Children's of Mississippi Hospital. It's part of the University of Mississippi Medical Center, but you run past the children's wing, which is really nice because that's what this race is benefiting. And then they have the little signs out front of the different children and the doctors and nurses, I believe, as well. But mostly it's the children saying thank you for supporting me. And that was nice, seeing that and knowing knowing what my money is going towards, which I was a pacer, so I actually didn't pay. But if I did pay, it'd be nice seeing as a pacer, I'm also kind of supporting this. So it's nice seeing what I'm supporting. They had a band out by the University Medical Center. They were kind of cool. It was kind of nice listening to them. They were like a cover band or whatever. You go out, you go by Ida B. Wells. There's like a middle school, I believe, and Ida B. Wells was a activist and a social rights activist. You go past her, a school named after her, which was nice. You go past, you're running mainly for the first, once you get out of downtown is about 3 miles or so. And you're never really downtown. You're just by the fairgrounds. That's the first 3 miles or so, 2.5, 3 miles. Then you're going through residential area. The residential area is nice. It's shaded. It's a little bit of camber to some of the roads, but that's very common in the South, as you'll see. You run through these homes, you run through the neighborhoods, beautiful neighborhoods. Most of the course is an out and back for the first 14. There's nothing. I was a sweeper and I was by myself for most of the race, which is a race this size. I think there's 2,500 people total this year, and it sold out. And but for the marathon, for the regular start, I would probably put it at about 200 or 300 people without looking at all the data. For the regular start, about 200 or 300. For early start, it's probably 100. So you're looking at 300 to 400 total for the marathon. That's where your out and back is. I was coming back in at mile 14, and at that point, all the aid stations, by the way, they're spaced out. I was afraid of falling behind the aid stations and those getting closed down before I got to them. So I brought my Ultra Vest with 2 water bottles, and I also had my handheld flask. It's an 18-ounce water bottle. And really, for the first 3 hours, I was fine with just the aid stations. They're spaced out just appropriately. Everything was good. But then as I got around mile 13, the heat started coming in, and I was out there. I hit mile 13 at probably a 3:40 time, and that's when 3:40, maybe 3:45. That's when I knew I was going to have to walk more because my stomach was starting to get a little uneasy. The heat was starting to come in, and I asked one of the volunteers at the aid station where I knew I was going to come back to. I don't want to say the mile marker because I'm going to get it wrong, but I asked them. I said, "Can you let me know if there were?" Actually, I can pull up the distance. Can you let me know if there's any other runners between when I leave and when I come back? And they said, "Yeah, we can do that." So okay, cool. So I ran away, and well, I came back. And when I came back, she said, "Nobody's came by since you left." So basically that whole loop I had done, which was about a 2-mile loop, I was the only person on that loop. So I didn't feel right leaving the aid workers out there, and I spoke to the cop when I got to mile 14. It was around 14.5. I was talking to the officer, and I said, "Well, I've done these before. I have water. I'm good to walk." And he informed me that a certain section was not ideal. It didn't have a sidewalk, and it was a 4 to 6 lane road. So 4 to 6 lane road, no sidewalk. And then other areas, he goes, there's bad sidewalks. With all that in mind, and also knowing that I was a sweeper, I figured, no, I don't want to do this. I'll go ahead. So I jumped into the car, and I called my race then at 14.5. I leapfrogged ahead in the cop car, and he brought me up to the next last runner. So when I got up to the next last runner, there was the lady that I met in Rocket City. Her and her friend, not the same friend I met in Rocket City, a different friend, because the friend in Rocket City was a race director. Her and her friend were doing the ultra, and I said something to him to the effect of, "How you feeling?" Because the guy, he kept kind of falling a little bit behind at the moment. I said, "How you feeling?" And he goes, "Well, I'm feeling okay." And she said, "Don't let him lie to you. Nobody feels good at mile 91. And I said, "Mile what?" And turned out that they decided to do a triple ultra. Well, they did a 100-mile ultra, but they did the course for the 50K 3 times, plus a few miles to make it up to 100 miles. So they were on their own after that. I said, "Well, there's a turn." She said she told me there was a turnaround up there. So I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just turn around here and catch up to the next last runner." So I caught up to the next last runner. Her and I was running together for a minute, and then we caught this gentleman. The girl I caught up to, she was running the marathon. And after I caught up to her, we talked for a moment, and then we caught up to this gentleman. and he was running the ultra. So him and I, he's a pastor at a church that was a few counties over, about 2 or 3 counties over. I believe his name is Christopher. I forget his last name, and I forget the name of his church. But Pastor Christopher, enjoyed talking to you. Him and I did the last about 6 miles together, because I ended up doing 6.79 on that total journey, but probably 5 to 6 of that was with him. And him and I, we started coming in together. We were walking, and then I was like, okay, well, let's go ahead and do a walk jog. So him and I, we would name different objects. We'd name off, okay, we're going to go from, these park benches to that tree, or, from this tree to that tree, or fire hydrant to fire hydrant, or whatever the case may be. And we did those intervals to get us down this multi-trail. They have a multi-trail that's probably about 2 miles long. And we just made it down that multi-trail that way. It wasn't his first ultra. I think he said it was his 4th or 5th ultra marathon. And it was a really good experience with that. The officers that were there, they were very, very helpful on course. The volunteers on course, all the aid stations were very well organized, especially for volunteers that don't have a lot of experience. And I don't want to say they don't have a lot of guidance, because I don't know, and I don't want to naysay somebody who might have given them advice. So I don't want to say they don't have advice, but I only know of I know the Mississippi Blues Marathon is in Jackson, and I think there's one other race that's in Jackson. So there's not a ton of events that I know of in Jackson. So that's why I say they don't have a lot of experience, most likely. But they still were there. They were still having a good time. Where the turnaround was, there was a lady that was there on quad skates, and she was doing her thing, and that was nice. So, and all the aid stations were there. They were stocked, fully stocked. They had food. They had some snacks. They had some light snacks or whatever. The water was, even though the weather was getting up into about 80, 85 degrees, the water coming out of the cooler was ice cold. The Gatorade was good, ice cold. So there's nothing bad I can really say about the race. Came in, finished the race. Christopher started coming ahead, and they started shouting out his name, oh, and next up we have Christopher. And I was like, all right, you go ahead and, because to me, that wasn't my finish, because I didn't run the marathon. I cut it short by a few miles. So he went ahead and finished. I finished a few minutes, like probably a minute after him, because I wanted him to get his finish with his family and everything. I came across the finish line. They went. I took the half marathon medal. It's a nice medal. It's there's the rainbow on it, pot of gold on there. It says part of the Howes St. Patty's Parade and Festival. So that's what it is. The ribbon is really nice. It looks like the back portion, the portion that would go, the mid part that goes on the back of your neck, it looks like a children might have drawn the artwork for that. There's a rainbow. There's one or two little girls on there on the rainbow, some teddy bears and a sun. It looks nice. It's a nice, and on the ribbon it also says "Run the Rainbow" for children's. So it's a nice ribbon. The finish line, by the time I got there, a lot of it was breaking down, because I was at the 6:28 mark for the regular start. So a lot of that was breaking down, but they did have pizza available. They had water available. They had Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Diet Pepsi. All of that was on ice, and they still had plenty of that when I arrived, and the ice was still everywhere. They had a medical staff, of course, as you should, especially if it was a race for a hospital. You definitely want to have medical staff there. So they had the medical staff. They had a band playing. I can't remember if the band had started breaking down or had just started to break down when I got there. But I finished. I got underneath the tent and relaxed for a little bit. And then I thought I was last, and then another gentleman came in behind me, but he was doing a 50 miler, which was not part of the course. So he kind of did his own thing. So he knew what he was in for because he's doing his own thing. But that gentleman, he had his face painted. Excuse me. He had his face painted with American flag. He had American flag shirt. He had American flag painted on his body, like his arms and his legs. He had the whole get up. If I saw him today, I'd have, other than the fact he was a wiry looking fellow with a nice beard, other than that, I could not pick him out of a crowd because he had the whole American flag thing going, which is fine for him. I mean, I don't want to say, well, he had the whole American flag thing going, so that was pretty nice. That was pretty cool. Also, it wasn't the paint wasn't running, so I don't know what brand of paint or whatever he got, but man, that stuff was good. So, but either how, that was a short review. Well, hopefully it was a short review of the Run the Rainbow for Children's Marathon, Half Marathon, Ultra Marathon, 5K and 10K in Jackson, Mississippi, part of Howe's St. Patty's Parade and Festival. Would I run it again? Right now, my mind's telling me yes, but my body's telling me no. Kind of the opposite of that one song, my body. Yeah, no, never mind. Yeah, we ain't going to sing on this podcast because we ain't trying to do that. I'll definitely lose all my listeners if I try to sing. But it was a nice. And then there's a children's science museum down there. It's the Mississippi Science and Nature Museum. If you're a member of your local science museum, and it's part of the ASTC network, then you can go to this museum for free. So that was nice. My son and I went there. We only got an hour there, but that 1 hour was nice. We also went to Medgar Evers' home, Medgar and Merle Evers' home. That was it's newly part of the national park system. Seeing that was also nice. So if you go, yeah, I would definitely do it again. I think I'm going to do it again next year. I'll probably do the early start because the elevation is real. I think it's 1900 elevation for the full, which being from the north, I realized, well, north-ish, I realized that our marathons are a lot flatter than the South's marathons. Oh my God. Oh man, the hills are real down there, boy. The hills are real. So I'm staying. I'm up north. You see 400 or 500 feet, 600 feet, 300 or 400 feet about normal. 700, 800 feet. You're like, oh, that's kind of hilly. 900 feet. Like, oh my gosh, this is 1900 feet. Like, oof. It was one I didn't respect the hills like I should had. But anyhow, really good time. I think I'm gonna be there again next year. So with that being said, remember to run the race you're in, and that Ford is a pace.